Kryptonana, exit liquidity, hodl-nana, dump it all. Kryptonana, exit liquidity, hodl-nana, dump it all.
Kryptonana, exit liquidity,
dump it all.
hodl-nana, dump it all. From the day we arrive on the blockchain and blinking step into the trade, there's more to lose than can never be won, more to dump than can never be saved. Influencers, tweets, and the noobs all follow, buying high, selling low at a game. But the boomers know, and Sailor, he knows that the dump is coming. It's all the same. It's the circle of exit liquidity, and it moves us all through despair and hope, through faith and FOMO, till we find our place on the path unwinding in the circle of exit liquidity. Some of us fall by the wayside, and some of us soar to the stars. But the influencers always win with the Lambos and their cars. So beware of the pump and the inevitable dump, for the cycle continues and the news get wrecked. Kryptonana, exit liquidity, hodl-nana, dump it all. Kryptonana, exit liquidity, hodl-nana, dump it all. Kryptonana, exit liquidity, dump it all. hodl-nana, dump it all. It's the circle of exit liquidity, and it moves us all through despair and hope, through faith and FOMO, till we find our place on the path unwinding in the circle of exit liquidity. Dump it all.
So, hey everyone. As I mentioned before, I'm stuck on the circle of exit liquidity. I can't figure out how to switch it back to my original intro thing, so yeah, that's just what we're doing. But hey, Jeremy, how's it going?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Yeah, what were you just talking about?
Well, I was just talking about how everything is now a take, because
yeah.
I just want to get the normal opinions of people I follow, but apparently that's too much to ask. So instead, we're going to just get constant takes on like whatever is the currently being amplified political thing happening exclusively in America, and
Yeah.
like AI slop maybe, and that's it. Like you're just going to hear a lot of that, and you just think, all right, what I just want to hear from the real normal people that I have followed because they have stuff I'm interested in saying. You can't hear it. And so also just the way the feed works, it just promotes those posts that are so performative. They're written with so much, over the top self-awareness that I am making a public post to Twitter. Like, all right.
Yeah.
This is why the solution is to just build something different. So I'm sure that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to hit on that a little bit at least, if not a lot, because, like, what I wonder though is how much of the content of these video posts or audio posts that the actual algorithm is able to discern and tell what we're talking about, because talking about other platforms gets you deboosted to hell and back. And I'm just wondering, I wonder if, is Elon listening? Can you hear what we're saying? Can we hear that we're bad-mouthing the ultimate
Maybe.
X?
Yes.
Yes.
Maybe they're running it through speech to text and putting it into the algorithm, and then we're deboosted. I mean, I'm for sure censored or suppressed or shadow banned or whatever the hell the word is. Like, I've been at 9.9k followers for at least 12 months, maybe a lot longer, maybe 18 months. You lose track, but it's like my account was growing, albeit quite slowly, until it got to that point, and then ever since I have, it goes up a few, 9,920, and then a few unfollow, and 9,895, and then it goes back up a little bit, and just goes in that exact pattern. And I rarely to never get those notifications like new people have followed you or whatever, even after I have some big post or a post that does well. It doesn't matter. It makes no difference.
Yeah, and I guess the charm of Mr. Musk's empire is that he is an experimenter. He just does different things all the time, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But the charm is also the curse of just everything is different like 2 seconds later. And I do feel like Twitter was always like okay. When they started to like censor it, it was not as okay, of course. But then when in the early days of X, once like horrible breaking things like stopped happening, once they kind of got it steadied out, and then they introduced monetization and stuff like that, then I kind of feel like that was like the golden age.
Yeah, that was a
where
really good period.
Stuff just worked. You could get monetized. You could make a living. Things just, and then you had the AI era of like AI slop everything that just sort of overtook it, and the bots are still very much here. They're all verified now, but then I can tell AI slop answers when I see them. And then when they started to migrate the algo from just an open source thing to like AI driven, that's when it really like fell off a cliff these last few weeks. And so like I've noticed this with like posts get nothing, like almost zero engagement, anything. But once in a while you catch a rocket ship and then it goes like soars. And it's just this weird inconsistency of like, do I have to, there's not even a set of rules as how do I play the algo. It's just, and it's different from last time. And so like the lessons that I learned that got me monetized, and a bunch of people I know monetized, now don't really apply. And it's just like, okay, well, is it really worth mastering this one thing over and over again, or is it worth building something different?
Well, that's it. Exactly. And it's just like you've got to get the word out. If you're building or creating or doing basically anything, you're going to need to get the word out there somewhere. And Twitter has happened to be the place that has the sort of lion's share of the promotion and attention from people who are most interested specifically in crypto. But I think that's always changing over time. And if it keeps up the way it is, the signal, network effect doesn't last forever if you're just producing a crap product, right? So things will just either slowly revert to people migrating away, or there'll be some tipping point, whether Elon sells it off to somebody else, or he just is kind of like has too many of his own friends be like, what is this crap, mate? Or like whatever. And then something will change. I mean, it's not like he's in there pulling the strings every single day, but it's just part of an overall system of, the leadership or whoever, whoever is involved on a daily basis, just doing a crap job pretty much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to give a quick negative shout out to just everything else because, obviously, I used to be a big Facebook user back in the day. It used to work really well for a lot of things. And then it just became super censored. And then they stopped showing stuff on your timeline. It just the same kind of patterns of we'll decide what to show you and how it works. And then it just went to shit. And then I just stopped using it. And same thing with just about everything. But then, of course, there's alt social medias, and I've been in so many of those. And oddly enough, the one that never disappointed me pretty much was memo.cash because, first of all, I just never got my expectations very up after that absolute potato interface. But then it just kept doing that for years. It never got worse. And I'm like, yeah, this isn't bad. I guess this will work. It's so everything else just went to hell. And I have to say, Mastodon is terrible. I just stopped using because my engagement was not that good, and just it's Blue Sky is just another Mastodon that Gab is the same thing. Just they're all so bad. And I was like, oh, let me try some new stuff. Award of the worst thing ever goes to Farcaster. I don't know if you've tried Farcaster, but unless you just want to feel some pain in your life, I just don't think you should do it because I have never successfully started using Farcaster. Just everything, Ether, EVM, whatever, the way you use it is gated behind some email type sign up or whatever. Some there's always some dumb centralized shortcut that they make you do, and which just goes against the whole thing. I'm used to raw dogging it with my keys, right? And I can't, or I couldn't, whatever. And then I never got the email, so I never could sign up. And I've tried 3-4 separate times, including just today. There's other interfaces that let you do just connect your wallet and then it can do it. And then I can't even figure out if there's one client I should be using. It says Warpcast, but then I can't find it. And it's mobile only. There's no desktop, and I can't. Trying over and over again as a 13 plus year crypto veteran, I cannot figure out how to start. It's just awful, just absolutely awful. And so, Nostr is the same. It's not nearly as bad, but it's still very bad. And just everything sucks so hard. And I don't understand how these things still exist. How the market doesn't thoroughly reject these the moment they come out if they suck this bad.
Well, that's the thing. It's kind of, I'm always in that position of well, the whatever options suck and are terrible, but am I doing a better job? No. Okay. Well,
Also
maybe
no.
there's maybe there's more problems to it. Maybe it's harder than you think. Maybe there's all these other factors or whatever. So you kind of got to temper criticism of anything with, I like the saying that it's not a problem unless you've got a solution, right? So unless you're willing to provide a solution, then the options are the options, and choose from them or just, be quiet about it. So then that's where I'm kind of why was there no good information about BCH? Oh, well, I'm going to be the one to create the BCH podcast. Why are there no good freaking wallets that just work and do what I want and don't have all this sign up and don't have 10 different coins and blah, 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 and open source? So then we just made Selene, and it takes a ton of work to do it. So it's not a trivial thing to do, but when you decide you've got a problem that just nobody else is doing even a remotely good job of fixing it, you have to fix it yourself. And then that has one of two outcomes. Either you build something good and then you're good, now that's problem solved. I never have to worry about all these crappy wallets ever again because I have Selene and it's perfect. It's great. Or you discover along the way, damn, there's a lot more that goes into this than I thought, in which case maybe you've learned some humbling lessons or learned something along the way, and you can appreciate the other solutions that exist a little more. So it's kind of a no-lose type of thing.
Yeah, and there's just so many ways this could go. But as far as the why everything sucks, it's kind of like all the alternatives is, for lack of, at the risk of being, insensitive, maybe, it's just like the unattractive person at the end of the night in the club, where you just like you struck out on everyone, and then they're the last one there, and they're like literally, let's just say her only game plan is being the last one standing to just catch up someone on the way out. Like that's your only game plan, is just to be like nothing else. And so that's like all these alt social media things. It's like they don't care. They don't have the discipline to hit the metaphorical gym in this case, to like actually get better, to become something that people would voluntarily go for. So they're just like, maybe I can just outlast everyone and just be there. And it's, oh my gosh, it's such a bad thing and such a bad experience for the end user.
Well, I mean, it is hard to get adoption or traction, especially in something that is very heavily network effect based. So there is that, but it's just true that any kind of thing like that, well, maybe you're going to start out at the fringe, both literally and metaphorically, which is, if you want to build some traction on your anything, you need a niche. So you got to start with serving that niche, and your early adopters, the ones at the innovator end of the bell curve, who are a bit more tolerant of the fact that it sucks, but in many ways, but it's providing an alternative that they need, and you've got to iterate for those customers and stuff. But eventually, to win over more than a tiny fragments of people, you're going to need to produce something that is not only equal to the current thing, which is hard because they've been doing it a long time, they've got more resources, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You have to equal them, and then you have to 10x them so that you win over converts, right? And that's how you do it. And then you become inevitably the bloated incumbent who everybody's complaining about it sucks, and some other guy has to go through the process of starting up an alternative, right? So it's a bit of the circle of life there. But regardless, that's basically how it goes, right? And that's maybe what you're saying, is that these alternative social medias, they've done enough to get that initial trickle of interest because it's people who need an alternative for some reason or are desperate enough to try something different, but they haven't managed to start converting that into performing at a high enough level for it to actually be like, wow, this is a meaningfully like one-to-one good competitor on less resources, but maybe doing some innovative stuff to compensate, let alone being like better, that you're like, oh, thank goodness I've ditched X and now I'm on Y,
Is that what you're going to call it? Y?
That was what I started saying that, and then I thought, oh, this is inadvertently turned into a pun.
Yes, the funny thing about that is like the dash thing that's been being sort of built over the last month is called Yapper, which starts with the Y. Yes. So it is from X to Y. But yeah, before we hit the intro and then we start like getting more into things, because I know we're going to hit on like the social stuff, and I want to like, when we get there, actually talk about the stuff. But like just the last conceptual thing on this whole, like, let's just say building a social app is, everything sucks because people just build it to have a thing. They don't build it to have something good. And once you build something good, who's going to spend the time and effort to build something good? Someone who is probably profit motivated. And then the logistics of financing something in capital and growth at scale is just like heads most people off. They're just like, man, I don't know where the money is on this thing. I'm going to just not do it. And then the people that do push forward, then if they make something good, because they literally have to try just a little bit and something's good. You have to think about it for like 5 minutes, try it out and be like, I don't like this. Why don't I like it? Oh, let's change this. Now I like it and others like it. Wow, big mystery. And once you get it to where people like it and some people start jumping on board, then you're still sort of struggling to make money off of it because that's kind of what you wanted to do. Then someone offers to buy it out, and then you're like, sure, I'll take $1 billion for this. You give it to them, and then they just nuke it, kill it, ruin it. But it doesn't matter. You got your money. And just like the keeping this thing through to the end and not fall for any of the various enshittifications that attack you along the way is just like, that's the real thing. It's not easy, but it's not actually that hard, I don't think, to build a really good social
it's incredibly hard. It's incredibly hard. It's like you were saying, like see it through to the end. There is no end.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. It's like if your mission is to run a bit at social media, and that's why there's all these business books that are about find your mission and da da da, you know, because you have to actually, your mission has to not be let's make some money or I hate this other thing, so I'm going to make an alternative. That could maybe be a little spark that gets you started, but at the end of the day, you have to actually be passionate about this needs to be good for its own sake, and then you need to be willing to sustain that at a sacrifice. Like you said, you're probably not going to start off making a lot of money, and you might even end off never really making that much money out of it. But that's kind of, it's philosophical, but that's where you get into like things like religion and stuff like that. Why did they build all these churches? They were not like trying to make something that tourists wanted to come and pay €5 to see the stained glass window. They were like, no, the whole point is that doesn't matter if nobody else cares. Like, we're just going to make this because it's good. And then, of course, after you do that, then everyone else goes, wait, this is really good. And they want to be involved, and then you can monetize it and so forth. But it's just everything in life.
Yeah.
You know?
Because I think the straightforward part is, it's not easy for everyone, but the straightforward to figure out how to do a thing well and make a good thing. That's relatively straightforward. Well, listen,
maybe it's the easier part of it.
Yes, it's the easier part. Then the next thing is you can't do that sustainably. You can't make money off of it and stuff. And it's just the delta of people who can figure out how to make a thing decently and know how to get enough resources into it that it works and is sustainable. It's almost all of those people then are people who are motivated by making an empire, a big profit and stuff. It's hard to find someone who's good at making enough money to keep making this thing along and wants to do that and isn't going to be like, I'm going to take this to the moon and sell out the product because, you know, I want this. And so it's just, that's one of those reasons why, again, like Elon Musk is one of these unicorn type people in that he does want to do things for their own purpose. He wants to send rockets to Mars. He wants to do Starlink and all this stuff. He wants X to be the town square. I don't think he pay enough attention.
He's kind of failing on that one, but you can give him a pass because he's doing like 6 different world-changing missions at once. So,
of course, he's one of those people who I don't think he's motivated by profit. I think that profit is a scoreboard he wants to keep going up. But I don't think that's the first thing he cares about. And you see almost every other, like, rich person, billionaire, like the Bill Gates. Do you think Bill Gates gives a crap about Microsoft today? Like, no, he made his money and now wants to, like, rule the world through his shadow NGOs and all that stuff. His real passion in life. And then you have, like, Jeff Bezos, and he just built this Amazon empire. And then now all he wants to do is be Pitbull. And so he's just jacked with these events, and like that's all he wants to do. And it's just like the guy who just keeps making the money doing the thing, but then just wants to do that thing or other things is just like rare. And so that's kind of like where each piece of these things is like, it's just like, it's not hard to be in good physical shape and lose weight. It's not actually that hard. It's not maybe easy, but it's not hard. But it's just who does that, who also doesn't have to for whatever other reason, who also has other things they want to care about in life, who also gets tired sometimes. He's healthy enough, so he doesn't. It's just all the things together. You just don't find like, and like if you want to find someone who's very busy and very successful at other things, like Pavel Durov of Telegram, you have to be a little bit of an making some assumptions here, but probably true. An insane narcissist to be like, I'm still going to do 1,000 push-ups a day because look at these abs. Like, you have to be a little crazy to care that much, even though it's not that hard. Like, I think I could do 1,000 push-ups a day. I could work up to it, but then
you say that. That's the problem. Talk is cheap. Like, it's easy to say, and that's the whole problem.
I've done 1,000 push-ups in a day before, so I kind of know the work that goes into that. But I just don't care. And that's the difference. So
that's right. Exactly.
That's the rarity. All these things all hitting at the same time is you can't have nice things.
Yeah. Well, most people, and I'm no different. That's why, like I said at the start, like you can't be too much criticizing on my country, whatever, they should speak my language. And it's kind of like, well, let's just think about that for a second. Like, do you speak their language better than they speak yours? No. Okay.
Usually no.
All right. Well, if the two of you are going to communicate, that's how it's going to go down, in their broken version of your language, because that's still better than your efforts in their language, right? And then you just kind of things go from there, right? Where once you understand that concept, then you never again are like criticizing anyone for being unable to, and anybody who goes through that process of learning a second language and putting in the effort and being embarrassed and going to a foreign country and like all the different things, learning the grammar and forgetting the vocab, then you kind of understand, so it's not like something you can do overnight. So you appreciate people who have made some effort a lot more after having done it yourself. So yeah, it's kind of the same thing over and over there. Yeah.
It's all the same, as it
Yes.
were. All right, let me hit the intro and we'll actually get this thing going now that we got our philosophical ramblings out of the way. All right, 3, 2, 1, go. So, hey everyone, officially now, welcome to the Digital Cash Rundown. It's episode 215. I'm joined by, once again, the only person named Jeremy in the world. How's it going, man?
It's going great. Friday night crypto, because I always say that because I grew up every night on TV on Fridays, every week it was Friday night football, and I'm like, nope, that wasn't my speed. But now we got Friday night crypto. That didn't exist when I was growing up. So we've leveled up.
Yeah, something fun to do. But yeah, and the whole pre-show thing, we were just rambling mostly about like social media and growing businesses and building things that aren't awful and how that works and stuff. But a little bit foreshadowing on some things. So let's just dive right into the stuff. First, of course, we got to do the obligatory shill fest for Coin ATM Radar, which is a great sponsor of this show. And when buying crypto with cash, an ATM is definitely much more reliable and safer than meeting some random person in a random place and getting shanked. And unlike an exchange, which could freeze your account, you do truly own all the crypto that you buy. With Coin ATM Radar, you can find different crypto ATMs and services where you can buy or sell cryptos for cash. On the website, search by coin, like Bitcoin Cash, address, if the ATM supports selling as well as buying. And you can also search by geographical area, such as country, state, and city, and check and compare fees across different ATMs. To find out more, coinatmradar.com or coinatmradar.com. I need a little jingle for them. COINATM. Whatever.
That was not too bad. Maybe you
Just
should
make
go
it
with
a
that.
little funner. You are want to get shanked. No, I don't know. It's funny. I have like no visibility into any of the feedback from the actual sponsor on this, and so I'm kind of hesitant
Blind.
to
Yeah.
do that kind of stuff. Where was the? Yeah, so it's been quite a wild ride for crypto for a little while, right? And precious metals, and we've had everything like game stonks has been like one of the first things to just, I don't know if crypto started it or they did, but everything is wild these days. And so the safe haven of the world, the precious metals, have had quite a run. And our dearest friend, Peter Schiff, has had quite a good time here. Like this was yesterday, he said Bitcoin is now worth just 15.5 ounces of gold, down 57% from his 2021 high, and just 10% above his 2017 high. Despite all the hype and support from Wall Street and the Trump administration, most people who now own Bitcoin would have been better off buying gold or silver instead. And he's like, all the trash he's taken from the maxis, he's just loving this. And then also he's posted this picture of him in pomp. He says, "Look who I ran into in El Salvador." He grabbed him at a local restaurant. I asked the waitress if we could pay in Bitcoin, and she said no. He just has to like keep going. And then he posted this thing in back of a headrest. He says, "This was written on the back of a headrest in the car that just picked me up from the El Salvador airport. It's leaden, which is get a loan, keep your Bitcoin." And he says, "Leveraged Bitcoin will soon be liquidated at much lower prices." Just everything. And then now, of course, more recently, we've seen these prices go down as in today, as opposed to yesterday. Like the hype is already over. He said gold and silver prices may have crashed, but look at where they crashed to. Gold is still above 5,000 and silver is still above 100. These are record highs last week. Drops of 10% of gold and 20% silver are rare buying opportunities. Don't miss out. So he's turning into, yeah. Anyway, what's your hot take on this individual?
I love that picture of him with pomp, and the best comment, as is often the case, came from some anon in the comments who was like five comments down or something like that, and had about 2 likes, and they said, What's with you being a gold influencer? You say gold is so great, but you're always flexing you and your Bitcoin friends. And that was just like, got him in one. Gold is not cool. There's Peter Schiff and like Mike Maloney, and that's it. There is no cool circle of things happening in gold. If there are gold conferences, nobody cares. If there's no developments in gold, there's nothing. It's just gold is gold. So that's why he wants
Bitcoin
to be part
or gold
of
here.
Well, both. I mean, BTC is suffering the same fate from the rest of crypto. Again, also the energy is shifting, as we both know, over time, slowly from one to the other. But gold it's not like gold had a cool circuit ever, really, or not at least in our lifetime. And then BTC came up, Bitcoin came up, and it was all cool, and it became cool. And now they're slowly losing that edge, but they've still got that over gold. There's still no gold with its 5,000 years of history. Where are the gold podcasts? There's like Peter Schiff, and that's it, basically.
Yeah, the funny thing is, like, if you imagine such a thing as like a gold influencer, like, what do we have? Like a crude oil influencer, or like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, what the hell? Like a apples and bananas influencer, like inanimate object influencers are just ridiculous. And it's just because crypto has become this like tech religion thing that now like it's an influencer, but now in order to compete with that, you do have to have like a hero. And so Peter Schiff is like the hero for gold and silver. And there's not really other people. Now there's more people coming out of the woodwork saying stuff like that. But it is funny. Like, and now, of course, the world has shifted to where it more closely resembles, these kind of weird speculative markets that we're kind of seeing. So, like, as we could see here, this was just like 2 hours ago. So very not long ago at all. This Chris Millis dude posted a Peter Schiff saying it's not a store of value, but gold is, kind of thing. And then this giant crash of the chart. And he says, you have some explaining to do, Peter Schiff. Keep that same energy. To which he responded, yes, what happened today is unprecedented, but so is the run-up that preceded it. So these are not normal times. And then this guy said, you should extend the same flexibility to Bitcoin's volatility. Yeah, it's just like how quickly things turn around from like Mr. like crazy boomer yelling at cloud, and then now he's just on this huge victory lap. But now he is in the same hot seat of not being like, well, it didn't do as well, Bitcoin did better. It's like, no, he's in the same hot seat of like crazy volatile pump and dump thing. And like, I bet he didn't think he'd be there. It's like, it's unprecedented. Yeah, so we live in unprecedented times. What can I say?
Well, I mean, it's all coming essentially, which everyone agrees on, including Peter Schiff actually, from the fiat debasement just ruining the currency and therefore distorting the economic signals. That's what's at the root of the whole problem. But it's just the problem at a level higher is that Peter Schiff and the BTC guys, they both take the price as their metric. So when the price is going up, they say my thing good. And when the price is going down, they say, oh, well, it's volatility. Like zoom out, think in the long term, et cetera, right? They always have those same copes. But it's both sides. It's two sides of the same coin, ironically. They actually need to change their metric. This is why it can't be about number go up. I mean, that's nice if that's a byproduct. But if that's the main thing you're talking about, that's exactly what you're going to get into. And it's funny because neither side is able to see the bigger picture, which is, maybe I shouldn't be dunking on the other side right now, because then in 6 months, they'll be the ones dunking on me. They need to get out of that cycle, but they're never going to, right? Like what they need to be saying the BTC guys don't have any adoption. That's the problem. Because gold, there's no like as well, like there's no influences, but that's also because there's no stuff. Peter Schiff can't announce anything except that the price is going up, or like central banks have bought some more gold. Once in a while he announces that, right? But he can't be like, holy cow, look at this innovative new gold tablets that we just brought out, or look, we've got this new coin design so that people can use gold in retail merchants around the world, or like there's nothing to discuss, if you know what I'm saying. And then BTC used to have all the stuff to discuss, which is why it was cooler, and now they also don't have stuff to discuss for the most part. It's just Sailor is just the Peter Schiff who announces a new amount of buys or a new central bank thing, and that's it. That's the whole thing. There's no like narrative arc because nothing ever happens. It's just those same two things endlessly in a cycle. But I guess Peter Schiff and all the BTC guys who argue with him get loads of engagement and visibility. So the means to the end serves its purpose, you know.
Well, speaking of which, since you summoned him, there's one of these things queued up. Sailor laid out America's plan to rug pull BRICS by adopting Bitcoin and dumping gold. And that's been circulating around. And I don't know if you know who Hodl Magoo is, but he's some like semi-sane maxi who's a critic of a lot of these things. So even though he's a maxi, it's sometimes fun to see his stuff. He said, this was December 2024. Since then, gold is up over 100% and Bitcoin is down. Haha. So, yeah, it is kind of funny how it's not even like, I don't even know. I'm starting to run out of things to even say about this. Everyone knows, right? It's everything is a pump and dump game. Everyone's trying to just pump their bags. And anything anyone says is just trying to like fight the war of words to be like, but it's going to pump more than that one. And then you're like, all right, I'll buy it. And then you do it. And then he pumps and then the other one doesn't. And then, loser. And that one pumps and you sell. It just, perfect thing to base the circle of exit liquidity off of, because yeah, it's kind of crazy how like very temporary narratives are driving the entire, I wouldn't say crypto space, the space, all of space and time, right? It's all narratives right now. And it is wild because I kind of feel like people have jobs and income and they pay for stuff they want. That's pretty solid. And investment was supposed to be so you can save for the future. But investment across everything is turning into a casino, and which is just wild to me. So it seems like the only investment that you should really care about really is something that gives some sort of a yield that you can cash out immediately realize gains. So like a business that pays you, or a job is the best form of yield, right? Like that kind of thing. And it's just kind of interesting how like the old, boring, stable, shiny rock, or like tech stocks or whatever, it just become part of the gambling machine once more.
Yeah, because it's just late stage fiat currency, right? As the world goes into hyperinflation, individual fiat currencies have already been going into hyper. We saw the Iranian rial, right? They're finished. They died or whatever last week or the week before, whenever it was. And just that same thing is happening to all the minor currencies. And so people are just fleeing into the US dollar. But then the US dollar is just starting to hyperinflate itself. And that's the base of the whole scam. So, of course, combine that with the modern age of social media, and like you used to have bank runs, right? Like people would get scared that the bank was going to collapse, and then they'd all go and run to the actual bank storefront and then discover that was how they got their financial education back in the day, right? It was like, actually, A, we don't have your money, and B, even if we did, it wasn't ever backed by anything. Like, sorry, you've been scammed, right? But that was how they used to do it. But word had to get around, people had to be like talking at the marketplace or something like, oh, it seems like the bank's a bit shaky. Oh, I heard that, Sally went yesterday and took her money out. Like, oh, Sally went? Holy crap. Well, I got to go tomorrow when the bank is actually open Like, it might be too late. Like, if I wait another week, and then once enough people are thinking that same thing, bam, you get the bank run, right? So that was how it used to go down. But now it's just the same thing multiplied 1,000, because it doesn't even need to be anyone you know. It doesn't need to be anything to do with your local area. It's just this disparate mass of people, like, on rumors of rumors of rumors, which is now further amplified by AI and so forth. And then you just have, like, whatever investment you're in is just, it could be a panic at any moment as everyone tries to, like, get out of it, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely a consequence of the information age we're in, because back in the day, obviously, like, food was like super scarce, and then safety was super scarce, and a bunch of these basic human needs were super scarce. But then beyond that, like, information was super scarce, where you listen to that, like, random child on the street corner going, "Meh, meh, meh," like the town crier, just like saying, the Pope died, or whatever, and you're like, oh my gosh, let's listen to this guy. And then, like, the paper, you just got the paper, what does it say, and it's like information, like, no one knew anything about anything, and now you get, like, a book. There's some stuff in here, we haven't vetted it, but some stuff, and, like, let me see, and, like, no, you can't learn how to read that or you're a witch, and, like, just the amount of, like, craziness around that. And now there's just a flood of information. There's just and most of it's fake. It's just all out there, and it kind of must feel like some kind of a sensory overload, like drug trip or something, where people are just walking around this fuzz around their brain, just in this, like, low hum of just constant information everywhere, and it just, you get it, and you just don't, you have to tune it out. It's like tinnitus in your ears all the time. You just got to tune out all information, kind of. And I do think that probably what's going to have to happen is people are going to have to start synthesizing with it a little bit more directly, to where they can kind of get exactly what they want from it, and just, they don't have to think about, like within a second or two, all the information gets sort of condensed into, what is real, what isn't, this is according to what, and then you just, like, oh, this is true, oh, that's true, and you're just sort of like an all-seeing, omniscient being sitting in the moon in, like, a yoga pose, just like, a war will start in a year, and you just, like, it comes to you, kind of thing. It's gonna be interesting to see, but, like, in the meantime, yeah, it's a fun time to be alive. What can I say?
Well, it's just that mix of, there's such an overwhelming amount of information, so you need some way to filter that information without reading all of it, because it would defeat the point if you had to read all of it. So then that comes down to, who do you trust to filter the information, which is the business that you and I are in a little bit, on a very niche topic, as being the ones who do monitor, like, a whole stream of nonsense and just filter out, like, mostly the good bits. And then that's our content, which then people consume, and they're kind of like, okay, I could be up to date because this guy who's reliably proven in the past knows what's going on. So unless I want to specifically dig into it, most of the time he's going to be right? So you have that. And then even from the huge pool of information, you have to filter it down and find who to listen to about different topics. But even then, like you said, most of the information you're getting in the first place is wrong, unless you got it from, like, actual reliable experts, who are very, very rare and very hard to find. And then even the stuff that isn't wrong, of the stuff that is right, there's only so much of it that's relevant, right? Like, it might be completely correct that such and such is happening in some other country or whatever, but, like, does that matter to you? Are you going to wake up the next day and, okay, it's nice that you know that the government in Myanmar has had a meltdown or whatever, but does that change anything about any of your conversations with anyone, except for, like, oh, did you see that thing about Myanmar? Except for that, does it help you with any of the things you're actually trying to get done? Probably not, right? So it's like a multi-layered problem, really.
Yeah, and I have noticed that the relevance of knowledge, that's the problem, is when we're into this, like, AI algorithm era, where, like, I like AI tools plenty because I get to use them for what I need, and I learn a lot of it. It's just that when it's self-directed, right? But when it's that directed, that's when things get weird, where I'm just constantly exposed to all this weird drama content that I just don't want to be exposed to. And one thing that's kind of interesting is, like, with this emerging technology, you're seeing these kinds of problems in it, and like, there's nothing more infuriating than talking with an LLM on a matter for which you are a subject matter expert. Because so like, I wrote this short article on Citrea, the new highly vaunted like BTC L2 that I think it was mostly cited as the justification for the Opperturn stuff.
Yeah.
Even though Citrea said they didn't need it or something, there was some confusion about it. But that was kind of like, oh, companies like Citrea need the Opperturn limit to be like, infinite. But so when I gathered my basic information on how it worked, and it was like, all right, this is pretty standard and terrible, right? When I was gathering it, I was using Grok to ask the basic questions and then looking at what it was citing, and everything was just trying to like hype it up, and it was crazy because like it's just all the information on it, even the actual factual stuff, it's all like marketing copy, because the entire thing, I'm just like, it's a next generation super decentralized, like all this kind of like stuff. I'm just like, I didn't want to argue with it because I just know it's bullshit. But like, they're saying like, it's inherits the security of the L1, and it doesn't, because you think, what is security, right? Security is the ability to not have your transactions reversed or the chain be taken down by outside actors or whatever, or just taken down at all. And it doesn't have any of that, right? It's a single centralized sequencer that decides if they're going to include transactions or not, just on the entire thing. And that's it. And it's like, well, that's not, how does that inherit the security? Oh, because you write it, you write you compress all the information that's on this chain, and then you write it on the Bitcoin chain, so it has the same security. I'm like, that's not how this works. Like, I'm not an expert in blockchain and crypto, but I know a decent amount, and I just it's completely ridiculous. But because it's just like all these marketing copies about like, oh my gosh, it's like inherit the security, just a way of like scamming people with their like base 2.0 kind of thing that they're launching, that they have to sell it, and then the LLMs think that that's how it works because that's the info out there, and no one other than me who doesn't like this cares to even look into it. So like, do you think the Nazis, I have to be more careful so I don't get booted off of YouTube or whatever, do you think the Knots people have any idea about how Citrea works or even care to talk about it?
Well, they don't, but then they do a little bit, to be fair, but also they're kind of right. This is where it comes full circle to you and I just laughing about how ignorant the BTC people are, saying everything is a scam. Well, that's not a terrible heuristic, right? Like, it's wrong. It's kind of like there's BTC and then there's everything else. And of everything else, a little bit of it is very, very legitimate and important and innovative or whatever. Or even more of it is innovative but still wrong-headed, or they're trying something new or whatever. And then a lot of it is just scams, right? So if your heuristic is being one of these BTC guys and saying everything else is a scam, BTC is the only real thing, you only invent scarcity once or whatever, like, that's right 99.5% of the time. And since that is overwhelmingly accurate, you can fool yourself easily for a long time of, haha, I'm a genius, I've got it all figured out. It's kind of a black swan type of thing, right? Like, you're right all the time. The turkey is right that, it's going to live its life for the next 100 years up until Thanksgiving, and then bam, that's it. The turkey's just alive, suddenly dead, right? And that's like Nassim Taleb. That's his whole thing. Is like, well, you can be right most of the time, and most of the time that'll be fine. But then the one or two cases that you kind of are wrong and you never thought about, that's what gets you. And so that's kind of the same situation where the Knots people are sort of like, well, all this other stuff, it's all nonsense and lies and blah, blah, blah. And they're almost always right. So that confirms them they're fine. But what's going to get them is the few cases they're not. And that's what I've been seeing really recently, which I think is interesting. You've started to see it creeping into their discussions. I saw Chris Guida talking about it the other day. I've seen Tone Vays talking about it. You've seen a couple of other people where they've started to say, like, shitcoins are not going away. Like, they've actually had that realization, was kind of like, wait, it's been all these years and we've been telling the Ethereum people they're going to zero and it doesn't matter and it's a stupid project and all this stuff. But it's 2026 and they're still here. Like, they've started to realize that about Ethereum, about BCH, maybe about Monero or whatever. Back in the past, it was like everything's going to zero. So sooner or later, these guys will run out of money and just stop, or realize they're wrong and we are the, you know, chosen ones who are right about everything, right? But now they've got to the point of, right, like, okay, a lot of things were scams, but a few of these things are more resilient than we, you know, gave it credit to, which is a line of thinking that will eventually get them to be like, what am I missing here? How did I not realize that there was something valuable? Oh, wait, we don't have the answers to everything. We're just sort of a large part of an overall tapestry, you know? And so that's just a really interesting shift. That's 2026. Maybe it was everybody, you know, New Year, hooray, happy New Year. Everybody woke up in 2026, or at least some of these B2C guys, and started thinking, wait, what's going on here? Like 2025, it was all, oh, okay, these failing losers. But for some reason, this is the year that now it makes sense. Like, these guys aren't going away. And then that's going to be also a good thing, because it means they're going to start listing, or maybe they started listing the last year or two. Certainly with BCH, that's been the case. And then it took a little while to, you know, first they're ignoring you, that whatever, you know, they ignore you, then they fight you, then you win, right? Like, that's kind of what's happening.
And it's a natural consequence of just the way things have gone, where you kind of have a hegemonic power that does something, and then because of its hegemony, and also because it got captured, so literally the people running it aren't the ones profiting from it. They're profiting off of it as a remora, kind of sucking onto it. But it's just not going to grow. It just, you don't grow if you have no external stimuli, which is competition. But so Bitcoin, I would say when it peaked around 2016, by 2016 is when Bitcoin kind of peaked, I would say. I mean, there's a lot of, like, you know, adoption, a lot of, like, market penetration, a lot of other stuff that peaked, you know, 2021 maybe. I don't know, maybe that kind of went through there, or maybe even more recently. But as far as, like, Bitcoin as a core technology, what it was used for, what you could do with it, you got, like, colored coins and counterparty and a bunch of other stuff. And just, like, I still remember I used to use this thing called anonymous ads, where you could just copy paste a little, like, snippet of code onto your website that would just auto pay, like, completely without even an account. And anytime people clicked on it, you would just auto get some Bitcoin paid out to your Bitcoin.
That's so cool. Yeah, it's
like,
so
just
cool.
But, like, we're saying that 2026 how cool this was. It was way more cool 11 years ago.
10 years ago. Yeah,
It's
of
like,
course. Yeah.
It's there was just cool stuff being built, but it was like, basically Bitcoin is money, like a monetary system, but also like digital cash, and then you could do little other things with it. And then that world has shrunk and shrunk and shrunk as far as what it does, and now it's just like a backing reserve asset that, you know, if you really want to, you can hold in a Trezor. You know, I don't know why you would, but you can. And so as it shrunk over time, the rest of the crypto space has just grown, and maybe any one project has not been that great, but they're doing things that Bitcoin never could and never wanted to back in the day, but especially now is not doing. And then they're just like fail, and another one comes up, and like Hyperliquid, right? Hyperliquid's kind of one of the latest things that they had, like something like 50 million in fees in the last 24 hours or something, just mind-boggling. Something just like, oh my gosh, what are they doing over there? And it's just an exchange, but it's like a perps exchange with spot and also commodities and things. And so it's not even all trade, right? It's just a good chunk of it, and that use case is going crazy. And then you think about all the other things, and like, there's no one was ever going to build a Bitcoin Hyperliquid, because that's just not what they do, and that's not what they would ever do. Maybe
they could have. They will on BCH eventually. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's exactly it. It's like, also BCH has become something very much out, like beyond Bitcoin to a certain extent as well, beyond like what people thought of, and which should be an evolutionary trait, right? Whenever
Yes.
something, you thought you could do one thing, and then over time you can figure out more things. But so all these things, the whole world is migrating onto this stuff. And so like, even if Bitcoin was money, what's going to be the payment thing? Well, we got a Lightning Network, whatever. Let's just give it to them for a second. And then like, well, stocks. Why do you need stocks in companies? Well, because people start companies, dipshit. Okay. Like, and so they start a company. Like, where are you going to trade your stocks? Okay. Well, Hyperliquid. Okay. Well, that, because why do you need to swap between Bitcoin and shitcoins? Well, because sometimes you have a stock, like you already have a stock portfolio, or like, I just only own Bitcoin. Well, who starts your Bitcoin companies? Someone has to. How do they get financing for it? How do they have to give equity away? Someone buys those shares, which are now Hyperliquid. So it's like, okay, well, you need this thing. And then what do you whine about on, your podcast or whatever, present company excluded, of course, but like X, YouTube, like, whatever the other things are. And then like, they kind of dip their toes into like Nostr a little bit, but like Nostr, and tried to pretend that that's Bitcoin somehow. It's not. It has nothing to do with Bitcoin. It's completely different technology, but somehow it's Bitcoin because Maxis like it. And but then even then that's like a capitulation that you can't do everything you want on that. And eventually, like, you have everything that you do in life. You have your money, you have your payments, you have your social media, you have your equities and stocks, and then you have your like AI stuff, your prediction markets, your just everything you do in life, your accounting software, your just there's just no end to things that you do in life that are technological and digital. And eventually all those things are on some blockchain of some kind somewhere, and then you can't be Bitcoin only, because then you just can't.
You just miss out. Well, that's the thing. Like, it's one of those things. Like, you can't ban Bitcoin. You can just ban yourself from Bitcoin. But in the same way, you can't ban innovation. You can just ban yourself from innovation, which is essentially what they've done, and it's all well and good. Like, it's so funny. There's this great Hodlnaut post where he talks about, he's making this sort of analogy about how BTC is all these guys on a rocket, and then somebody on the rocket gets panicked that like they're about to fly into a black hole or something like that, and rushes around and tells everyone and blah, 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 and then jumps in the airlock and just ejects off the ship and is like, taking off in a different trajectory. And then this guy who's on this airlock, panicked escape hatch, suddenly like looks back at the main ship and sees everyone like waving and smiling and laughing as he just goes off into the void. And like, actually, there was no problem. The main ship was fine. Like, that kind of mentality. And that's their approach to everything that is not BTC. And while a lot of it is scams, and a lot of people did eject themselves off and lose money or do something stupid or whatever, the fact of the matter is, if you're just still on that same trajectory, eventually those launched pods, some of them are going to actually be going in the right direction. And at first it's ha ha. But then when you really get the turnaround is when they realize, wait, a few of, which is what's happening, right? A few of those pods are succeeding. Like, what? Like, we were so confident, but now maybe the joke is on us. Maybe that's going to be 2026, the year that BTC people realize the joke is on us, kind of thing, which kind of already happened, like with no coiners. It was the same thing. It was like, oh, this stupid cryptocurrency, these idiot scammers, these yada yada yada, like all those people had FUD that, Budcoin, like whatever. And then now it's the year 2026, and if you're still trying to rehash that stuff from 10 years ago, you just look like a moron. Oh, the government's going to ban it. Oh, it's going to stop or die, or the price will crash, or it'll all end somehow, or everyone will end up scammed. There'll be no businesses. It's just like people have stopped having those debates. I don't debate anyone about that. You don't debate anyone about that. The BTC guys don't debate anyone about that. It's just like reality has changed, and you simply just look delusional, and you'll get negative social feedback from even non-crypto people who will be like, what are you talking about? This is clearly a whole thing. Like, you can't just keep saying that. And that's kind of the point. Now that same transition is happening from just dismissing everything. No coin has just became irrelevant. And now the BTC people, it's kind of getting to that point. And the important point is not that they were irrelevant, because they already were several years ago, but it's that they are starting to figure it out. And then once that like shame and self-realization kicks in, that's when the tipping point, because then their own internal circles suddenly become like, wait, were we wrong? You know, were we the bad guys? Like, that starts to happen.
I just had a realization while you're saying all this about maxis are less than or fewer than no coiners at this point, because if you're if you're a no coiner, you just don't believe in this crypto stuff, but you're kind of along for the ride, floating down the inner tube of the river that is the global economy. And then eventually the apps and services and companies that you use will start integrating some blockchains into their stuff, and you will just become a user of that by default. Just you'll be there. But the maxi is aware of if they're aware of this, if they detect they're using a shitcoin, they will try to dodge it to something older and more terrible. And so eventually they're just going to become like the digital Amish, just kind of sitting around like, no, we can't use that. It's the English use that. It's electricity. And it's funny just kind of how that's turning into. But like it's also been funny to watch like the contraction and expansion of roles under the maximalist ideology, because at first it was Bitcoin only for everything. And then it was like, well, we don't need to do tokens. We don't need, like, there were some things that even maxis in 2017 did, and they've just like pushed it down to like whatever. And then eventually it was like Lightning and Tether, and Tether is like was that big, the only shitcoin allowed in the maxi world for a while. But then we get to the modern era where now it's just like, okay, well, we can do Lightning, but now you want to do Taproot assets or whatever else on, you know, you not everyone's into that, but some people are into that. You got that, and then you got cashew and Fediment stuff, and that's like, oh, well, that's another thing. And then you start to get kind of like the DATs, the treasury companies, have become like no coin or maxi DeFi, right? Where everyone wants some sort of leverage or rehypothecation or whatever it is, and it just Bitcoin doesn't do it, so they just outsource that to fiat rails, where all the strategy shitcoins they keep printing they're all some kind of a risky yield product, i.e. the casino, the DeFi casino stuff. But it's not even on Bitcoin, but it's like Saylor just says like, and that's the funniest thing about it is it was like, okay, well, you can buy into a treasury company and they will somehow find a way to acquire value by buying Bitcoin faster than if you could just buy Bitcoin yourself. It's just like a leveraged play for Bitcoin. It's like Bitcoin on leverage through some weird little wrapper. But now with like what Saylor's been doing with all these things, he's been raising fiat and then keeping it in fiat, and then offering these other yield products that like give yield that isn't just you own part of strategy and therefore strategy goes up because it has a bunch of Bitcoin. And so now, because of this like affinity, it's basically like the boomer Cetrea, where Cetrea is like, well, we're a complete EVM slot machine, right? Just like there's nothing else. Everything's an EVM slot machine these days. So we're our EVM slot machine, but because we write stuff in a symbolic manner to the Bitcoin blockchain, that's our paying for our virtue signal to scam some noobs. And Saylor buys Bitcoin and holds a bunch in order to basically punch his membership ticket to now he's part of the Maxi Club, and now he can just scam noobs with shitcoins.
Yeah, but they've started to turn. That's the thing. That's it's festering at the moment. Maybe festering is not really quite. It's the right word, but it's more like incubating, or it's circulating in the knots crowd. That's their little thing, is being like, actually, Saylor was a bit of a scammer. Like Jack Mallers, he used to be cool. What happened to him, man? Like they're going through. You can see that stuff percolating in there. Now Adam back. He's Adam SPAC because he's like in league with the bankers, man. What's going on? It's like,
do they hate him now? Because I remember when I started seeing, they were very angry at him, but there was so much cope around it because he was like the last idol that they can't fight.
Yeah.
Because they were like, oh, I don't know what's up with him these days, but it's not like he's a scammer. It's like, I don't know what he's up to these days. And like,
oh, it was someone else on his account. It was an intern.
That's the best part. It's just like, you walk in and you're like, oh, that's someone else, someone else, like, that's not my wife banging the neighbor. It's someone else pretending to be her or something. It's like, come on, dude. Come on. You know what's going on here. It's gotten pretty bad. But then, yeah, as we get, it is kind of interesting how there are forks in the road, again, no pun intended, with blockchains and stuff. But we were in this era where everything did one thing, and it sucked at those things. And then there was the Ethereum era where everything was going to do everything. Everything was the everything of everything. And I kind of feel like we're sort of in a weird way past that, but also not. Where a lot of things are realizing, like is Hyperliquid trying to be a stablecoin payment chain and NFT thing for collectibles? Absolutely not. It's trying to be Hyperliquid, and it's killing it at being Hyperliquid, right? Same thing with all these other like DEX protocols and stuff, and like Near, which I don't know a ton about Near, but it's one of those like modern day Ethereum Solana type deals. But no, most people don't know what the hell Near does outside of intents, where they're like, oh, look, it's like the actual good looking, like good working shapeshift semi DEX that like does this stuff. This is cool. And but then like we get down to like Litecoin had privacy. Now they got this like lit VM thing, which is like I can't get too far into that. It gets a little crazy. But like all the old school chains are starting to do more than just the one like money payment whatever thing. So it's kind of funny how you see the two pivots in the cross directions of a lot of chains are simplifying their target base, and then a lot of other ones are expanding far beyond it. So it's like you kind of have to do everything sort of, but you kind of also have to specialize. You have to generalize and specialize at the same time. And yeah, that's I'll foreshadow what we're going to end up talking about, of course, but like with like the BChat stuff. But like, yeah, what is your take on the generalization and specialization concurrently? The fact that you have these two opposites happening in the space simultaneously.
Well, I know what you're saying because yeah, you're right. Like originally, everybody was just originally BTC did everything, or that was the plan, and then of course that didn't work out. So then BTC did the one thing, which was over 15 years become a digital gold that does nothing, and Ethereum rushed in to fill the alternative position, which was everything that does everything. But then they had scaling problems, so then you had everything doing everything was not making sense because other people also were needed to do everything because they couldn't take all the traffic, right? So then, yeah, and now we're in this world where, I mean, of course, BCH, the love of my life, is front run this perfectly, and that was always the plan. And so we've set everything in motion, and now we've got a mega VM and scaling and, quantum and privacy and all this stuff. So we're looking good, but we've front run this era of, like you said, lit VM, Dash Evolution, whatever other coins starting to jump on this everything with everything. But it's kind of like they say in life, you want to be sort of T-shaped, to have a good job resume. You need to have one thing that you're like incredible at. That's the reason they hire you, because we need the guy for this thing. But at the same time, if you're just that, then you're going to struggle, because then you're obviously going to have to work on a team with other people. So they also need to have, you need to have some competing skills, like know a lot about a little and a little about a lot, right? Because that broad base lets you relate to other people. It lets you find crossovers that you wouldn't expect. It just brings extra context to the thing that you're really good at. But then if you don't have, so you kind of need both, right? And that's kind of what you're saying, is that crypto has gone from it was originally we're going to do everything, and then it went to we're going to do one thing, and then it went back to we're going to do everything. And now that that cycle has happened enough, people are kind of like, well, you kind of got to have a T-shape, you know, you got to do one thing super well, but you kind of got to do everything. So for instance, like Monero is going to struggle because they have their one thing, which is fine, and they're doing well with that, privacy, drug markets. But how are they going to pivot that to, yeah, but we can kind of do everything? It seems like it's a struggle.
Yeah, let me. There was actually something that came up about this just today. In that, Jallo, who is a Monero dude out there on the X's, who I've kind of, I don't know. I think I like, you know, they're a prickly bunch. So I must have had some run-ins with this individual, but also he followed me not too long ago after hearing me say some good things about Monero on a podcast somewhere, and then since then we've been having positive interactions. It's a little weird, but like, okay, fine, I'll take it. Just posted, is a Monero L2 necessary? 375 votes, 64.5% saying no, 35.5% saying yes. And then it's just like all these kinds of answers about like, what is it for? We don't need it. Oh, we absolutely do because of this, and blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. So there have been conversations around that for a long time. The thing is, what I think the Monero community has run into over the last year or so has been this like technological, I don't want to say dead end because that's kind of where BTC is at, but this like, or it's coming towards the dead end, but it's like a serious blocker in the road where you can't just like do a tweak to get around it. You have to get out of, like, as a metaphor, when I grew up, I had like, 100 kilometers on dirt roads to drive to before going anywhere. They were not government maintained. And when it rained a lot, sometimes the entire road would wash away. And I remember a couple times in my life, not just like going slow and getting around the bumps, but stopping the car, and my father and everyone else getting out of the car with shovels and just digging for like 20 minutes to get the road to where we could keep going, right? Sometimes you hit a barrier that's that big. And I kind of feel like, for one, the lack of the view key limitations that will not be a part of full chain membership proofs apparently was a barrier to a lot of things. But then there's just other things where, like the signature things, like the threshold signatures for something like Thorchain were just like not there or not secure, and it technologically struggled to get on these things. And then just no good anything, any kind of like wrapping protocols or anything for DeFi. And then we have Hyperliquid again coming back in December. Someone, I think it was CowSwap, I don't remember who it was. It was one, there's too many things to keep track of, but this one company did this like centralized bridge of Monero where they just like, give me some Monero and I will mint you a token. You can ape into it on a Hyperliquid. And Monero had like a lot of volume on Hyperliquid perpetuals. And so like some way, shape or form, it like went there. But then there's all these discussions about how do we get it like into the broader financial world and get things moving. And kind of like, I'm sure, the entire UTXO world is also very behind the times in terms of like connectability of wallets, in terms of all these kinds of signing mechanisms, as far as all the other stuff you need for DeFi. And a few of them, again, like BCH, and I'm trying my best on my side, are like recognizing this and trying to get into things like Wallet Connect, for example. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to see that whole thing happen like that.
Well, it's just kind of, it reminds me of like young kids in a treehouse, basically, which is, if your scope is small, you can afford to be delusional and not pragmatic about reality. If you say the rules are there's no girls allowed, then you can create your treehouse and you can have you and your three mates in it in your corner of your mum's backyard. And like, that's fine. That's actually perfectly workable. Like within that space, that's going to work. But you're never going to have a non-trivial amount of actual area in the world that somehow keeps out like women en masse, right? Like that's literally not a thing, because reality does not support that for all kinds of reasons. And so it's sort of the same way with the Monero community, where they are on that like laser focused mission, like privacy and and that's great, as long as they are a small niche thing used on some drug markets and whatever, which they are so proud to say we're the only ones used. and they would never say, "Oh, you've got a point," because they would always say, "Well, show me when your thing is used on our drug markets. Then I'll admit that maybe your coin had something going for it or whatever." And so that was fine until they realized, like, okay, where all the drug markets, now what? And then they start. It's like stepping outside the treehouse. Like, now we're going to have to compete in the real, or not the real world, the rest of the world against everybody else. And suddenly in the rest of the world, people are not just doing DeFi for no reason. It's because there's a lot of demand for it. And suddenly our competition in the real world is competing on a level that we weren't prepared for, because we were so monomaniacally focused on our thing, and we were convinced that it could work because we were just in our little treehouse. So that's kind of what I'm hearing. That's kind of what I'm seeing in that way, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely like the treehouse effect. And there have been a few different cryptos that I have to say, I'm not going to mention by name to not hurt feelings, but like I definitely, like, you can tell when they're poking their heads out of the treehouse. Like, you're like, oh, okay, well, welcome to 2026. Like, there's a little bit of that vibe, and it's kind of, I've noticed this more acutely because as someone who's just is trying to like works full time in the space, etc. I've also made myself very like open source, sort of very available as far as like any knowledge that I have or connections that I have. I kind of like, unless you're like an actual asshole or an evil actor, you ask me, I'm going to tell you what I know, kind of thing. And so because of that, you have people showing up and they're asking, hey, how did you, and by the questions, I'm just like, oh yeah,
you've realized
a little, but like, I'll help you, but man, this is rough. And it's one of those things, and I guess this last little bit on this rant thingy before getting into like the actual show and tell of like some of the BCH stuff that's evolving. The atomic, have you ever used a atomic DEX of any kind? So any atomic swap decentralized exchange?
Yes, I feel like I have. I think I've used the BCH XMR1 Axe swap maybe once, but I'm not an expert in that area of things for sure.
Yeah, tell me how it went.
Well,
if you remember,
I don't remember it being like clearly it was not. I don't think it was actually that great, right? Like, because I will default to like something like Sideshift is basically the atomic swap that I want, which just like that's kind of the UI that I'm hoping for. Like, select this, select that other coin, send, and you wait a little bit, some confirmations, whatever, being like it works. There's no sign up, there's no nonsense, right? So that's kind of what I'm expecting. But there must have been a reason that I didn't be like, oh wait, this atomic DEX is that. Well, I guess maybe it didn't have, it only had Monero. Really. That was one thing, yeah.
So from my understanding for atomic DEXs, and this is sort of like the first generation of DEXs, you could argue that we're on like third plus generation today, where you would say the AMMs, like the automated market makers like Thorchain and My Protocol, are kind of second generation, and the intense DEXs are kind of third. But the first generation, I've
definitely used that. Does that count? I use Zashi to swap like some coins.
Yes, that's the third generation. So you understand that's like the top level DEX experience today, pretty much is that. Now the lower level is of course atomic swaps, because first of all, and if a crypto is only on atomic DEXs, it's kind of crap technologically. Typically, it tends to be that way. But basically, first of all, you have to. It's like an order book thing only. You have to be like, I want to swap this for that at this exchange rate, and then you just put in an order. And you have to be online for someone to see your order. So you have to, first of all, you have to download a full node client, some kind of like actual full node type thing, and just run it. And then two, you have to place an order for the exact pair and the exact amount. And then you have to leave it up there. You have to be online, like the Lightning Network, always online, right? In order for someone to see it. And then if someone else sees it, they can choose to take you up on that. And then from my understanding, it's like a 4 transaction process to get the thing done. You have to wait confirmations in between each of those. And you have to both be online during this process. And so it's kind of nightmarish. Kind of sucks, right? Now,
Yeah, I definitely didn't do any of that. So I feel like I looked at it and I tried the UI a bit, and then it got to like doing any of that, and I was like, fuck it, I'm out.
yeah, it's because I got it that way with 2 different decks this week, and just there's always something that's like not working out. Basically, I've been on this side quest, kind of out of the goodness of my heart, because I wanted to do a deck swap with Dash. There was some issue with the Maya node, so it was temporarily paused, and I was like, what else is there? And I tried the other atomic stuff. I'm like, this is so bad. And then I see some person, mostly like the Decred community, being like, well, we don't get enough users and all that. And I just felt sad for them, and I was like, you know what if I do something? So I've been trying to sort of talk to all these atomic decks that just suck so bad, and see if we can get some company to build an intense style solver on top of it, which will basically scan the order books of all these atomic dexes, and then it'll find, you say, I want this for this, and it'll find the best price match, and you hit go, and then it'll just do the swap for you, kind of thing. And so you kind of have like the, at least like intense or Maya Protocol or Thorchain style experience for some of the older tech, and get some of the liquidity to those types of coins. But again, like poking your head out of the treehouse, being like, what are you guys doing today? And you're like, oh, there's a
It's like a rocket ship. It's like a fighter jet or something, and you're like, oh shit! Like
a hover
this is
train
what these
blowing
guys were
past
talking
you.
about.
You're like, whoa. And if you're asking, how do I get on the hover train? All I have is sticks and rocks for payment. I'm like trying to build a sticks and rocks ATM. It switches it to something real. So I'm trying to help these people out, and I'm trying to help other people, and I think we'll see how things go. But anyway, let's get to this BChat stuff. What do you say?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let me. I'm at the one where you hit the chat where it says "Welcome to BChat" stuff. Let me just put that up on the screen.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant.
Just the disclaimer stuff. So experimental feature. Blah blah.
Yeah.
Back your wallet seed phrase. It's your identity. It's a decentralized social media platform similar to Twitter/X, but built right in your wallet. So it's going to be in Selene wallet, correct?
Yes. So right now, the way it is what you're like using just is a website with we've like Selene works on the web, right? So you can go to app.selene.cash and you can use the current version of Selene perfectly. I think that maybe there's like one small feature or something, I can't remember what, but basically the whole app works in the browser, which is awesome. And then with BChat, which is something that I've wanted to do for a while. In fact, you and talking about it with Yappa on Dash kind of kicked me into gear a little bit, because I had made this sort of prototype about, I don't know, probably like 6 or 8 months ago, definitely in the middle of last year, but it didn't get good enough that we could actually release it to anything. Then I saw like you were talking about it and all this. I thought, okay, let me just get this over the line. So I fired up. Now we've got AI tools, which sped it up a lot. And I was able to make, something that was actually my existing prototype. I was able to like level that up a lot quicker. Like instead of it taking, a couple months or a couple, even weeks, it took me just a couple days of just grinding real hard on this. So the concept is that everyone in BCH is always constantly talking about Nostr. Oh, why don't we have Nostr? Why don't we have Nostr? Why don't we have Nostr? Like, and the answer has always been A, nobody's got around to it yet, and B, it's full of like BTC maxis. So if we try and do anything, they'll just rug us and shut down their info or ban us, or they'll just fight against us. So there's not really much point. And then C, like everybody liked the idea of it, but nobody liked the reality of it. Nobody actually made it their project or whatever. So I have now made that for Selene. So this bchat.cash is just like an experimental edge version of Selene pushed up to the web. It's not currently in the app, but we're it's in the app in the sense of the application, but it's not in the app like the iOS and Android apps. And so we're testing it on this web version with all these disclaimers. And then Callisti is my co-developer, is going to do a good review. Like I've just done the crappy version that just AI slops it out. And then we're going to refine it all so that it actually makes sense and, works like smoothly and all that. Whatever I've done that is a bad idea, he'll be like, okay, let's cut that out. And then we'll put a
Yeah.
refined version of it into the app and actually make it a mainstream release to everyone. So you don't have to sign up. You don't have to do anything because it just uses your wallet seed phrase to generate a public key for Noster, just like it would for BCH. And then, bam, now you've got like a Twitter clone. That's my starting point. My starting inspiration is Twitter is probably the best one of. There's basically Telegram, Telegram style, and Twitter style, right? There's chat rooms, which is single threaded, and then there's Twitter, kind of organic, right? And then there's maybe like visual, like Instagram or TikTok or something. But I'm targeting the Twitter case. We'll add the Telegram case later, but for now, the Twitter case. And yeah, I'm just trying to kind of clone that. But the main innovation, besides the fact that it uses your Noster keys and all the Noster infrastructure in the background, is that then every post comes with a BCH address attached to it, right? Which means people can send you tips. So it costs 4 cents, I think 5 or 6 cents, it depends on the price, to post, and that pays us, the Selene developers. So that's one way that we can monetize Selene. But the key is that then when somebody replies to your comment or likes your comment, they are tipping you. So a like is 2 cents and a reply is 4 cents. So if you're not producing crap content, if you're making a tweet that gets some engagement, then you actually earn back more than you spent. And also, of course, you can do custom tips, which is really useful because everyone has talked about this idea for so long. But it is actually good, which is that if you have social media with crypto integrated, if somebody makes a good post, you just send them $1. You just do it. Like I've done it a bunch of times. And I'm not going to do that on every post because not every post is going to make me think, well, that's a good point. But for the ones that are, I'm like, all right, I'll send this guy 50 cents. Like, good job. And that's a pretty amazing thing to experience.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the concept.
Yeah, that's the part that always gets me more interested is the monetization, the economics of things, because that's something that like you can't just AI slot past, but it's also something that like you just think on and do it right, and then it works, as opposed to like a lot of times code you need like a lot of complexity and skill and like whatever. But the economics are also, you do need a lot of skill for that too, but it's a different kind of more intuitive type skill. And I definitely like the some of the things that have plagued centralized social media, but much more plagued decentralized social media. Again, I've talked on this concept endlessly. I made videos for a year, like 4 or 5 years ago. I've made all kinds of stuff. There's tons of stuff out there on that. But you need to be able to pay to post, even whether it's exposed to the UI immediately or not, however it works, because otherwise you have like bots just swarming things and spammers.
Yeah, exactly.
And what they hacked Elon's premium stuff on X by just saying, well, if I pay a one-time fee, if I pay a fee, then all I have to do is post enough times to where the per post cost becomes effectively zero. And so you just hack this, even though you pay, you basically, you do 4D chess to like not pay. But like if it scales with your usage, then a spammer won't be able to spam because they just post, and they'll just cost. And then that takes the language of people's value, which is money, and the fungible one at least, and then it just makes them translate that into post. So they will only post if it's worth it to them. And then how do you promote good posts? You infer money to them, and therefore that boosts them up. And that's just like, it's just a natural, like, sound economic system. And Twitch did a lot of this pretty well. I think Twitch was a little too expensive. Maybe they started to get maybe higher than your range, like double or something. And also, with BSV World, there's only, there was a limited group of people, and not because they were weird, toxic maxi people in Twitch, but because the BSV brand was so toxic that it was like all hardcore BSVers and then me and like 2 other people that were just curious and in there, whereas like everyone else wouldn't touch it because it's BSV. And so it's like you have to overcome you have to really overcome that social stigma. But they had a lot, it was the same type of thing. You pay to post, you pay to like, you pay the author, and then split that with the site creator.
Platform,
and
yeah.
then saying, I don't know about, I think replies or something similar, but I think if you got likes on a quote post, then the money would trickle down. So where it's like, you really wanted to do a banger post where everyone wanted to quote you, because then you just harvest all their money kind of like secondhand. And
Exactly.
I hope you find a way to incorporate the troll toll, because that's still one of my favorite social media functions, where you can set a price for people to interact with you. And then
Yeah, we
it's
can
still
add that or something like that. You mean, well, there's two versions, I guess. There's one where you can add it onto individual people, that this guy has to pay
yes.
this much to communicate to you. And then there's also just like a flat amount, which we haven't looked into yet. Right now, it's just replies of 4 cents and replies of 4 cents. But I guess we could do a version where for a specific post, you could say replies cost like $1 or something like that. And just then only people who are serious can comment on my post. We already have the filter, so you can filter for only the posts that earned over $1 or over $10. And I'm kind of wondering, now it's very, very small, right? But if it starts to kick off and there is a big audience, I wonder if there'll be just like a whale tier where you'll just be able to set it to like $10 or maybe even $100, maybe even $1,000, where it will just be like the only people. It's like filters out all the not crap, and you're only seeing like what the whales are talking about, because they're the only ones who think, okay, let's just make it $1,000 a post, and then anyone who's talking to me or I'm talking to, this is legit, you know? Like, there's got to be a ceiling up there where once you get enough content going and there's enough eyeballs, but that will be so compared to like on Twitter, where the biggest accounts are either A, favored by the algorithm, or B, just have a lot of followers through some mechanism, right? But if it was
Yeah.
literally they were spending their own money and like good amounts of it, which maybe to them is not a lot of money, but you can see relative to the world at large is a lot of money, then you can take pretty seriously. It's just proof of work. The whole reason, the Bitcoin blockchain works is because the miners have put their proof of work into the blocks. So it's hard for them to lie, because if they get it wrong, well, it costs them the effort. So they don't want to waste their effort. It's literally the same mechanism. The BCH is just the proof of work. It's the value. And so you've got to put that behind your post. Otherwise, people can filter you out. Done.
Yeah, the language of value is always something that's super, like, I just is super interested in this, and I guess that's something I was always interested in economics. I studied in school, of course. I did all that stuff, just because for me it was the data science behind why freedom works, kind of thing. Like it's not a political argument. It's like, okay, well, look, the countries that do better have more freedom, the ones that don't. So therefore, you can prove that. Like that was my impetus, but it's like quite the rabbit hole, because it just ends up becoming everything about like economic incentives and how things work out. And it's funny because there is the absolute holy grail of, I would say, crypto, but lots of things, is that perfect nexus of sound economic thinking and sound user experience. And they're not really that different at the end of the day, because user experience is you want the user to get exactly what they want as easily and smoothly as they want at any one time, with as few, like, as just super cut down all the actions necessary for like their eye to find the button to send, and like just
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
you have to just make it as perfect as possible. And the problem is, like, the user doesn't always just want one thing at any one time. They do, of course. And so there's this constant dance of like, how do you make this perfect and beautiful for that one thing, but also let them do everything that they want to do. When if you multiply features, it just gets cluttered and it detracts from that. So there's that balance. But as far as like what people want, the language of value is money. And you should allow the language of money to communicate freely and not put up barriers. Like, for example, on X, I pay X because I value a platform and the features and stuff. And then it just, now a lot of that stuff is getting cut away. I don't even know,
Yeah, I don't know if I'll resubscribe. When I first subscribed to the Twitter verified or whatever, I did it. Yeah, exactly like you said, because I was like, wait, Elon came in, he threw out all the obvious censorship that was happening. So things got a ton better. Okay, he's going to have some grief with his advertisers who are all politically captured. And he was kind of like, screw you guys. You know, he did that like GFY on stage to the advertisers or whatever, like who were mad about him. And I was like, this is baller. Okay, I'm willing to throw in, you know, like if you don't pay, you are the product, right? I'm
Yeah,
willing
of
to pay for
course.
this. This seems good. But now, you know, if it's still just going to be as crap as it is, like I don't know if I'm going to get the value. I can't as easily justify paying for that. Basically, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just I would like to also pay people for what I like that they do. There's no good function. So what if I press like? Well, that doesn't do anything anymore. So the only thing that works is if I actually subscribe to them. But I don't want to become a
Yeah.
monthly subscriber to a bunch. I finally did one subscriber because I wanted to be able to play the Circle of Exit Liquidity on Spaces, and this one account. If you subscribe for like $5 a month or something like that, they give you this like special Chrome plugin that lets you pipe music perfect quality into Spaces, which is so hard to do otherwise. And so like, okay, I got one thing I do, and then other people subscribe to me, but whatever. It's the way that like people try to reduce friction by messing with the economics a lot of times, where you try to like clicking, you got to pay for this, you got to pay for that, introduces some friction. So people are like, well, just make it free. And then you just like screw up the economics of the whole system. And like, I don't want to be too mean to my friends over at Hive, but Hive has some messed up economics where anyone can post for free with certain capacity limits, but eventually, and then there's free money if you like them that you don't have to pay for. So if I like your post, it gets upvoted and might get some block reward money, but I don't have to give away some of my money for it. And it's just these weird little
That's bad though. That was the same thing. Like
yeah.
BCH had that before, where they kind of had noise. Well, we kind of had noise cache and read cache, which were not bad, and they were better than anything that they else at the time, I guess. But like the key point with BChat is that I am not funding money to go to posters or anything like that. Like that was just kind of as soon as you have a pot of free money being given away in this BCH faucet of some kind, you're just going to get flooded with low value spammers that are just trying to earn those, you know, small tips. But BChat users are paying each other. I'm not paying. So the more traffic, like in fact, it's the other way around. They're paying me when they pay to post, and I get that small amount in the Selene Dev Fund, which is fair because we provide the infrastructure and do the development, do all this stuff. So we're just getting paid for a service, and then users are paying each other. So there's no faucet element. There's nothing to jump on and start being like a begging grifter, basically. And so if you don't have that, you know, if you don't have a faucet for people to beg from, eventually they're not going to come beg there, right? You know, they're going to give up. So that's really important. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the hardest things is when you start charging for stuff and then no one wants to use it, and then you're like, oh no, I gotta not charge for stuff, and then you get everyone wanting to use it, but then you get like the
You can't
bottom
afford to promote
feeders.
it at that service.
And
Yeah.
you have to have a conviction that what you're providing as value, that people will pay for it, and then you just have to figure out how to make it work. Like, how do we make the friction of paying basically nothing, so the actual giving up of value is palpable for them, right? And then how, or is palatable, I should say. And then how do you like make the actual product worth paying for? Because like Memo was worth paying for because it was like nothing. You could just make a post for almost nothing. And it's just like the dust transaction fees or whatever was just like, you know, it's fine. But then like Twitch was a much better user experience and much smoother and a lot of other cool things. But it just cost way too damn much for something that wasn't competitive with X. Like if I'm paying for anything, it better be better than X, but smaller network effect to start out with. And like you have to get it better. And the better part is just like, that's where it gets hard, right? And you start to run into blockchain limitations. And then how do you work with all the indexers, or do you have an indexer? Like, how does this work? And the data storage. And then how are you going to allow people to upload images, but how are you not going to just turn into some like weird like Google Drive slop linking thing and like, or just an Imgur or whatever you call it, like thing. Like how do you do, well, we're going to do IPFS. Well, how do you pin IPFS stuff? Well, you got to run your own node, or you have to use a pinning service. And it's just like, then that's when the complexity of building it becomes just crazy, and you have to like, put it down. But so here's my thought on all this. This is the reason why I got into trying to do Farcaster and again failed today, is because I'm trying to think about something that works for everyone. And right now, we as crypto people, this is one of my, like, I don't know, I call it anti-maximalism, but whatever you want to call it. This is one of the reasons why I do that, is because the alternative is so weak on a whole. Like just the fact of opting out of the system, whether it's as a crypto person opting out of Bitcoin, or whether it's just a human opting out of like the banking system, big data. It's just like the menu of options are just like picking any one of them, you're just kind of hosed. So I'm trying to find ways to grow the entirety of the space together, so that then whatever, whether it's my favorite thing I'm working on or someone else's, but it's a viable choice. So for that, I've been looking into some like API type things where hopefully what I'd like to see is every one of these alt social platforms, especially like the blockchain type ones, has some sort of an auto post feature that is compatible with as many of the other things as possible. So that you don't have to be like, well, why should I do yours instead of this one? You have to be like, okay, pick the one you like, and then just auto post to like 5 of them. So you have a presence and there's content flowing on all of these platforms. And then you use the one you like. And if you find out you're getting tons of engagement on a different one, maybe you like stop auto posting there and just, or you auto post and then you like manually log in and then comment and do response and stuff like that. And just so that like the content thing is kind of everywhere. Kind of like with the Fediverse, I think, had a lot of that, where your stuff is just your stuff and it shows for everyone, even in their little silos, if they want to. So I was first looking into like Nostr, and I was going to look into like a Farcaster thing, but if I can't get on Farcaster, maybe it's just not worth it, right?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We are trying to address that as well too, and it's sort of that same problem, like you said, that okay, you do one thing, you do it well, but then users want something else. Like we've already had people suggesting about that. Like we made BChat, it's running on Nostr at a small scale. It's actually been quite popular. I've been surprised at how much interest we've got, and people are very willing to pay 4 cents per post. I can tell, at least our early users are. Some of them are then earning the money back. But anyway, we've already had people do exactly what you're saying and say like, oh, but what can we put our like signal posts on here? Can we put session posts on here? Can we put matrix? Can we do this, that? Like, can we cross post our Twitter posts? Like everything like that. And we will probably add some of that stuff. It's easy enough that, well, not easy enough, but it's one thing we can do where we import posts or cross post them or something, and then even have a filter so that you can use BChat with just whatever social network you want. You can either just mix together the different posts, or you can, filter them down if you only want to look at one feed or another feed and all that stuff. If it's any kind of open standard, and if there's a way to add metadata, not even metadata, but ideally metadata onto a post, then you can still have the same mechanism with the addresses and the tipping and everything. Like that will all still work. It's just about swapping out the layer that it's running across. So we'll wait and see how that plays out. I mean, part of me kind of feels like once everybody's using BChat, they just like BChat will just be BChat, and then whatever's happening on Matrix or Session. Okay, that's great. Somebody else can. I mean, Selene's open source. Like anybody can just fork it and swap out their backend to do Session if they think that's so much better. But the reality is nobody's going to do that because it's not basically. But I understand what you're saying, which is that people kind of like the idea of, oh, we want to dabble in everything. Like people want everything. Before we had BChat, everybody, oh, we need Nostr, we need Nostr, we need BChat, we need we need something for BCH. We need this, and then I provided that, and then of course 10 seconds later, we need session, we need it's like it literally was just, the paint is not even dry on like the fence you've just painted before people are saying, what about the wall?
Yeah,
so
of course.
that
Well, yeah, I mean, people do get excited too, and they have like social apps are kind of the killer app of apps, sort of. Like, I mean, there's all kinds of, everything else is B2B SaaS, right? Like, as far as like everything is some like crap you need for work that you just need, but you don't really care about. Everything else that people use online is just like social. Like, they talk, they want to consume news, they want to like send money to their friends, they want to like watch brain rot videos, they want to watch non-brain rot videos, it's just, social app is everything. And so especially once you start melding that with a business use case, it starts to become kind of next level. But I think that people get excited, and no one has done social right. Like, think about over the generations, this stuff, like Twitter was so limited in like how the character limit, what you can do. And it had old school Twitter was just a mausoleum. Like, it's interesting looking at. It's just like ooga booga, like writing with sticks, as far as like people communicating like really short little things. And it was like a status, like, the Desert Lynx is watching a movie. It was like almost that type of stuff. And it just evolved so much since then. Facebook was also just like, let me share pictures and my life updates. And then eventually it's like, let's share the most crazy racist conspiracy theories everywhere. And then they shut that down, and now I don't even know what it does. And then Instagram, and like, there's been so many of these levels of things that people are like, ooh, this is really cool. And then it just gets slopified over time. Reddit, of course, was like the nerds champion. And like, that's why like our Bitcoin is such a fixture of the crypto lore of the past, is because, Reddit, that's like this threadified thing. And then Reddit got slopified to where now I don't think it matters anymore. Everything goes through this weird slopification cycle. And Twitter was just on the apex, and like, it was just going down with the slopification, and it got rebooted into X, and now it's starting to slopify right now with the algo, and who knows where it'll go from there. But like, people are always there's this massive the reason why I think this needs to be gotten right, and I think this is super important, is, and obviously you must think the same, is because people keep trying generations and generations of this social network. And the social network at a analog level is just us and the people we know and the relationships we have. And just like, that is permanent. It's a core property, is in like physical property that people have. Like, people's monetary assets aren't as valuable as their social networks. Usually, it depends on who you are, right? And so, your network is your net worth and all that cringe nonsense. But so it's true. It's so the problem is when you need technology for that, but the technology silos the connections and data sets and stuff, and then just does this slopification thing, and you have to keep on starting over every time it turns to slop. So owning your own money is great, but owning your own data and social relationships is also just as valuable, if not more valuable in some cases. And I have no confidence in any social media site or startup or anything that it will not become slopified at some point. But if we all build it on some sort of data and ownership of that data, that you can just kind of like, when the slop hits, someone else can just jump in, and like the barrier to entry of like a competitor is like not there, and you just can migrate seamlessly over to where the slop never hits you. It never drags you down. You're never stuck in the slop. You can just keep going. And that's kind of
we already have that. I mean, we already have that in the sense of, like we're saying, when Facebook sucks, like I quit off. I haven't been on Facebook for, I don't know, 15 years or something. I was way ahead of the curve on that one, luckily. But then, if Twitter is starting to be crap, well, then you and I will find an alternative, At some point, Telegram will go downhill. At some point, BChat will be crap. Like, I'm sure of it. It'll go through an arc, just like everything else. But I'm trying to somewhat reduce, like you said, the barriers to competition in terms of our stuff is all open source. Anybody could just, and maybe in the future that won't be true. I don't know. You know, the fact is it's hard to run a big successful thing. So, but my aim with it is just that I am sick of Twitter, so I'm building an alternative. And then by the time I'm the one who's in control of the huge big social network, and there's millions of my users complaining, oh, Jeremy doesn't put whatever I think in the feed, then, well, A, hopefully I haven't lost that philosophy of just giving them custom dials and whatever that they can set the algorithm to whatever they want. But B, then like that's their problem. You know, it's kind of like goes back to what we said in the pre-show. It's sort of you can either complain or provide a, you know, or build your own alternative, and that's what I'm doing. And so then even if BChat eventually becomes crap, if I'm still in control of it, it won't be my problem because it will be how I want it to be, and somebody else, they could build their own social network if they don't like mine, and that's fine, you know?
Yes. It's so in a weird way, you can sort of sort all of humanity into three broad categories. Enshittification perpetrators, enshittification victims, and enshittification refugees. That's all the human race. So just summarize the entire human. And it happens, obviously we're talking about technology here, but it happens in terms of like countries as well.
Yeah.
Like where if you are a crappy dictator person, you just ruin your country. And then you have a bunch of like victims who are still there. And then you have either like, you know, immigrants or refugees or expats or whatever you want to call them that leave the enshittification. And then eventually the thing just like resets. And so the digital nomad, by having all these options, is able to never be stuck in the muck of the enshittification. And obviously there's some drawbacks to that.
There's a big problem. Yeah, that's right. The drawback is that the digital nomad community is also not running the show in any one country. Because if you're the kind of person who's like, well, if this sucks, I'm just going to pack up and leave. It's just the same thing that you and I talk about all the time. It's just the same thing, but with different terminology. It's like there's only protocol maximalists on core protocol calls. That's it. Because if you're kind of, I'm a generic altcoin type of guy, you never build up enough clout in one specific community to have the credibility. Like you have to be on the ship seriously to get any clout with the other people who are seriously on that ship. And then you're taking a risk. That's the whole point. Because if things go badly, you're all going to suffer because you've all actually bought into this same thing. So everything is just that on a spectrum. It's like you can buy in all the way, be a quote unquote maximalist, and then that helps you get the influence to run things. Or you can be, oh, well, I'll just float to wherever is good for me in the moment, which gives you the freedom of movement and the freedom of choice, but also no leverage to implement your great ideas because they're being, you know, you just have to choose. Like you can either be one of the items on the menu or you can be choosing from the menu, but you can't be both. You can't be choosing from the menu and adding your own items. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, the funny thing about that is that the two types do work very well in concert because the digital nomad risks nothing and also like stands to earn nothing, but they also act as the leverage for the people who don't decide to risk because it's like, look at all those people, they're leaving here. Like no one wants to build in our country because our country got shittified. And then therefore you have that leverage to then take over or, you know, approve it, I should say. And
so the swing voters. Yeah.
So the thing was like with like every single crypto, like, and I'm sure I don't know how much you've poked your head around and looked at what some of these other projects are doing or the people involved with them, but almost every single thing, except for maybe Bitcoin and Ethereum, because they're just, you know, or maybe Solana, because Solana hasn't had its like dip time yet, but they've all been harshly punished by exit, by people who just give them their power and their money and stuff, and they're just like, yeah, I'm gonna float on over here. It doesn't suit my needs. And then the punishment has created the grounds and the impetus for the next wave to come in. And so, like for example, like the BCH world in 2017, 18, 19 maybe was like ground zero for like fair weather friends, you know. And I'm sure you probably heard a lot of the stuff where like anyone who had a bone to pick with the big block, I mean the small block people and the maxis. This was the protest vote, so they just like all were there. And then eventually, variety of factors that I'm sure we've debated ad nauseum caused a lot of the fair weather people just float off to other things. And then finally, that's like the leverage of like, look, we need to get our shit together for the survivors, the remnant. And part of that, part of that thing is like, we got to kick Amari the hell out of here. We got to get rid of this. We got to get rid of Craig Wright and Amari Sachet. We got to get rid of these guys so we can actually grow again. And then now you have the leverage for that. But like the tourists had to leave, and it's been a
but then they come back. That's the ultimate arc to the whole cycle. Is like the revolutionaries stay, and they either they win or they lose the revolution. But if you've stuck it out, you're in that country. And then the tourists, as you're saying, leave, or like some people are like, screw these guys. Like the ones who didn't like your ideas are like, no, F off. We're going somewhere else. We're going, and they leave. They think, oh, there's greener pasture somewhere else. But if you're right, your thing, and you just stick there and stick at it, starts flourishing, and then it puts the tourists, the people who previously were criticizing and hating on you, in a tough position, because now, if your thing works, if it's going well, which takes a lot of effort, but then you earn the position of power where then they have to admit they were wrong, even implicitly, if not explicitly, if they want to come back, because they see, wait, they were right. Like at the time I disagreed with them and I said, well, I'm going to leave you to fail on your own. But then if you're not failing, if you're succeeding, at some point that becomes harder and harder for them to resist, because there's probably still a core of whatever they originally liked there.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. Like BCH has that for a lot of the people in BTC, right? It still actually has the core of a lot of what they're looking for. It still has the proof of work. It still has the UTXO stuff. It still has Satoshi's founding. Like people who resonate strongly with those ideas, okay, they might hate on and bash BCH, but they can never get away from the fact that actually BCH is closer to what they kind of agree with than 99% of everything else, right? So it just comes about like that good result from hard work that then earns you that position where people have to come back and eat crow,
Yeah, and the thing about the Fairweather Friends and the tourists and stuff is there's two types, right? And I've kind of observed this a little bit. So one thing that's happened like in the Dash community, right? There was a lot of people there, and then when the price is not doing well, people just float, like they kind of like float away. I think that compared to other cryptos, Dash has had the lowest percentage of like absolute exits, and the highest or not one of the lower percentages. Again, I don't want to be hyperbolic, of absolute exits, and a lot of like, take a nap for a while people who are they never like leave, they just like they never sell, they just like are doing other shit
I'm not putting my time and effort into this. And
then the price starts to pump a little bit, and then they reawaken. But they still, the good thing about those people is they still have, like the bad thing about those people is they don't buy, right? They don't come in because they're already in, right? But the good thing is they signed up for like the values and the whatever, the promises that got you through the hard times, and so they're not going to deviate. On the other hand, you have the Zcash community, where there were, with the big encrypted Bitcoin pump, came with a lot of slop people, like a lot of people where Zcash was supposed to be, they were working on something called Crosslink, which is a kind of like a proof of stake hybrid security thing to add faster and better finality and that kind of stuff. Working on that. They're working on something called shielded assets, which as far as I understand is ready to be merged in, which is just fully anonymous like tokens and stuff. It's like, oh, that's cool. And then there's like this Tachyon upgrade of like scale, and there's a bunch of stuff that they've been working on. Every crypto project needs stuff that they're working on that's ahead of them, stuff to look forward to. And then the encrypted Bitcoin people came in, like whether it's Mert, the Solana Helios guy, and all his kind, the encrypted people, the Bitcoin people came in and immediately became ossificationists. Like they're all just like, it's perfect as it is. It's exactly like Bitcoin, but might sort of scale, but mostly it's just private Bitcoin. That's all we want. Don't change it. And then they're trying to like say, no, we can't merge this in. It's too risky and all this other crap. And so that's like the sort of digital nomad type people that just float around and don't ever become part of that. And then there's other people that just sort of came back over a period of time. But it's one of those, like, a lot of drama in the Zcash world is because of their success. It's a result of the success, and I don't want those problems. And I'm kind of glad I'm not facing those right now. But like, on the other hand, there was a very small cluster, thankfully not many, but after the recent pumps in Dash since October, I guess, a bunch of, the first pump especially, since then, not really, but there was a bunch of, especially people in developing countries, but pure trader people, that when the price dips like 5% off of a high, they start complaining about, like, oh no, I've lost everything. What will we do? And it's like, mate, it was a multi-year high 4 days ago. How could you lose it this fast? How could you?
Because they were only in it for the last 4 days. That's the answer.
Yes, but just the level of like drama, the drama in 4 days is just, it's insane. It's hilarious to me. But
that is a problem you want to have.
You
say that you don't want that drama, but you do want that drama. That's what succeeding looks like. It's like more money, more problems, you know? Of course, as your community grows, you're going to have more fair weather people, more this, that, and the other. Like, that's literally that's why BTC is the biggest, because it has the most fair weather people of any coin. Like, the BTC maximalist community is not actually that big. It might be bigger than every other coin, but it's not big relative to the total number of people that are holding BTC, like a BTC UTXO, or even BTC in a custodial account, right? They just have this huge pool of people, which is why it's so important that if BTC is ever dethroned, well, when, because BCH will, but if, say, ETH flipped them, like, it would just happen in a tidal wave, because as soon as they were close, it is game over, because all those fair weather people are going to be like, holy crap, this is, I've got to jump ship. Same as what we were talking about with the bank runs before, the word gets around and it's like, damn, like, BTC is getting a huge bonus out of being number one. And if it ever looked like it wasn't going to be number one, that whole bonus would evaporate, which would definitely take it off number one. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of, it's inevitable that as you grow, you get more and more sort of fair weather people who don't really matter, or are just there complaining about stuff, or have all these wrong ideas. Like, Bitcoin Cash Odysee has this great tweet, which I've got saved somewhere, where he's like, there's just this pattern that all the people who weren't there in the bear market show up in the bull market to say what needs to get built. And it's like, that's exactly what happens.
Yeah. The bear market building stuff is an interesting phenomenon. I think projects need to cook there for a while. And obviously the Dash example, you had like 2014 to 17 had some like ups and downs, and cool stuff was built. And then the 2018, 19 to like now, or last year, whatever, is another cooking time, when you just have like you just have to earn your continued existence. And then I kind of feel like one of the reasons why Solana's exhibited such strength is because they kind of came out, kind of were hyped, kind of crashed 8 times in a year, and just had a lot of proving to do. And they just like cooked. They just built and got something really solid. I mean, whatever you want to think about it, like they figured out a secret sauce to grow, and then now that's what they are. They're kind of like, they don't really seem to be about to crash. And then obviously the Bitcoin Cash thing has been like, it's been like all misery for a while, and then the cooking, and then now it's like a path to go back up. And BTC has never dealt with that, because we have had the early days Bitcoiners, again, like myself, right? Who were there when like the crash from 1,000 to 200, and then just the Silk Road going down, like all this kind of stuff, and just having to earn its place amongst anything. But then the Maxi era, like Bitcoin was always sort of taken for granted or inevitable. Those people left, though. And the Maxi era is just like people who never earned it and never suffered. They just had to like not dump during a bear year, and they were fine. And so now Bitcoin's entire premise, the resilience of Bitcoin, the only thing that you could count as the resilience is the, for lack of a better term, because it's not 100% accurate, it's like fork resistant, where the Bitcoin Cash world, the big blockers tried to, reorient the ship, and they failed in BTC's case. Oh yeah, we beat those guys, and then they managed to like beat off the Nazis, right? So don't say that 10 times fast. But so they managed to get rid of that, and that's the one thing that they managed to do, is just expel people. And I kind of feel like Bitcoin Cash did that as well, but then also built things. So like you can't just, if you just expel people, you're going to zero. Sorry, but you have to build something of value. And then like the soul searching of what is Bitcoin is going to be very interesting. And what I kind of think, I guess this is my last thought on the subject, then maybe we show Bliss after whatever. But I kind of feel like if Bitcoin starts to go down, like down, there will have to be a reckoning, and it'll be whoever has believed in Bitcoin from day one, who has not gone off to other chains, is going to be there to pick up the pieces, and someone will build something. I don't know what that is, but like if maybe this is Paul Stortz's whole thing, the Truth Coin guy, right? Maybe that's his whole thing, is Layer 2 Labs or whatever, is drive chains is the only second layer or whatever type thing for Bitcoin that makes any kind of sense or appeal. And obviously, as you understand, I don't think it's better than not having to do that. But as far as that, it's like, okay, I get it. And it's never gone anywhere. So it might be that when people are panicking on the way down, this is the one thing that sticks. And then you're like, oh, we got our Zcash sidechain, but it's the BTC store of value thing, and we got an EVM thing, and the bridging is a pain, but like you don't really need to bridge because you just swap between these things on like swap things anyway. And then maybe it has a second wind. I don't know. What do you think of the plausibility of like on the way towards like defeat or obsolescence that was it BIP 300 or whatever it is?
Well, I just don't. I think you're hitting on the right thing, but I think you're looking in the wrong place, which is that, yeah, it's kind of what's happening right now with knots. That's the whole thing. Like BIP 110 is now in a lot of cases, it's Luke, it's Mechanic, it's some of these guys who were in it, since the early days, have now found themselves in 2026 with like, wait, what are we even doing here? Like, it's beyond the point that they can blame the B caches for being the problem. They can't blame the altcoins. They can't blame the government. They can't blame stupid no coiners that don't get it. Like, they've got to a point of like, wait, BTC is the way it is because we've been running the ship for quite a while, and this is what we've produced. This is what has come out of it. And then that's where it's turned into like, what is all this spam? Like, what is these NFTs? Whether or not that's a good thing, the point is they are having to face the reality of their own chain without distractions or without blaming somebody else or whatever. And that's what's happening now. In January, it was kind of festering again last year, but it's starting to poke through now in January as they're like, BIP 110, they've got a client. They is now actually out in a production release. They've got, 2% of node runners have started running it or something like that. And we'll see how much momentum that gets. If they get a couple blocks with Ocean, then it becomes more of a topic. And like, can they get that over the line? My position has been right since the start, no, they're going to just lose to the hijackers. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they do it. And that's also what I've maintained the entire time, So, but it's up to them. Like, it's their test, like you said, of rebuilding things in the face of like, what is Bitcoin? And the price has been going down. I mean, it's still pretty high, but because, like you said, so many people have offboarded and so many new people have come in, if they all bought in the 100K range or whatever, for them, like 70K or whatever, it's like crisis mode. Like, what are we doing here? And then that creates the ground for somebody to be the one with an answer. And like, a losing team can't lose forever. You basically, what's the saying for it? It's like, but just like your political party, you cannot. Insanity is doing the same thing, expecting different results, right? So eventually, a losing team has to introspect and say, it's not anyone else, it's us. What are we doing wrong? And that doesn't happen the first time. You'll get the wooden spoon in the football competition. Maybe not the second time or the third time or the fourth time, but eventually you can't blame the other team's facilities. You can't blame the weather. You can't blame this or that. You just have to be like, the other teams are doing something better, and we need to like figure out what we're doing wrong. And I think that's this going to be the story in part of 2026 is the BTC guys like coming to that realization. We've got to figure it out amongst ourselves.
Yeah, and I do think the Sailor capitulation and some other institutions selling a lot. Like, I think that's what's going to happen. That otherwise, it's not. The capitulation isn't going to happen. I wonder, as just like the last little side note on that, do you think the El Salvador thing about just buying gold all the time, which is kind of funny, do you think that counts as a key capitulation moment or not?
Probably. I mean, I don't like they're having some big conference there, right? Like in a couple of days or maybe even today or something. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of videos come out from that. But again, yeah, like that's so it's 5 years ago now. 2020, 2021. El Salvador is announcing we're going to build Bitcoin Beach, Lightning Network's going to go everywhere, blah, blah, blah. Like, and there's been some of that. It's worked a little bit, but for 5 years of work, it hasn't just taken over everything. And of course, like you posted, and you're completely correct, you know, Bukele's had his fun. He got, you know, got in at the bottom, hyped it up. He's probably sold a stack at the top. He'll keep some just in case. And so he can sort of retain his credibility or whatever. But people who've moved their lives there, they're kind of too invested to just leave. They've built some capital, you know, whatever is going on there. His thing is not BTC, it's El Salvador, or it's him being in power or whatever. And so he's kind of past that stage of I need BTC for my ends. Like it might still be around, but it's not going to be his thing anymore. So as he kind of moves on to whatever the next thing is, same way like Sailor, like his next grift is now those USD funds or like whatever. Like as people just move on and move on and move on, eventually the hardcore are left just thinking like, what are we doing here? Like, why have we been abandoned by all these people we thought were solid? And then it's like, who let them in? Who promoted them? Who got excited about what they had to say? Oh, it was us. You know?
Yeah. I definitely think Sailor's the bottom for that. Like, kind of the most BitConnecty of all, and no one meaningfully said no to him. So,
yeah,
there you go. Well, let's hit on Bliss on the way out here.
Yes.
I think I mentioned it on a show before, but just show the conference. So, schedule tickets more below Bliss 2025 to 2024. But anyway, May 2026, developers enthusiasts of the Bitcoin Cash ecosystem will be celebrating the Layla upgrade with presentations on current and upcoming projects in the beautiful city of Ljubljana, Slovenia. A bunch of fun little icons here of all the projects and stuff. And so, yeah, tickets, premium, all that stuff. What's up with the Layla upgrade? Here's a video. I'm not going to play it now, but, you know, we got it.
It's a good video.
You got the tentative schedule. Lots of unknown people with lady hair on
yes.
Here,
but yeah, we're going to swap that out for, you know, we'll have some actual photos and stuff will be coming for when we drop like the ticket announcement. We'll announce a lot of the speakers and stuff like that. So it's kind of still a bit of a placeholder at the moment. But yeah, I mean, the summary is that BCH Bliss is the conference that I have organized with two other guys, Jonathan Silverblood and Ryan Giffen, the last 2 years. We did one in 2024, celebrating the Jessica upgrade to the larger blocks. We did one in 2025, celebrating the Velma upgrade and with the VM limits changes. This year we're doing Layla, which is the kind of the third one in the series, and it's for the Layla upgrade that has functions, loops, pay to script, and bitwise, and it's going to be great. Like we've got only 100 tickets. I can give you some, you know, unannounced, unseen news or whatever, which is that. So we only have 100 tickets, but of the 100, 35 have already been allocated between the organizers, the staff, the speakers, the sponsors, like people behind the scenes, etc. Like, so we're already down to like 66 tickets or something. And by the time we go live with the sale on Feb 15th, it'll probably be even less. So there's actually going to be like 60 or less, maybe even 50 tickets open to the public. And that's before even the BCH people who love BCH and follow everything have bought in. That's literally just people who are connected up to actually running the event and so forth. So I'm hoping we're going to sell out, and I think we're looking good for that. Like BCH is just on such a tear of momentum. Our price has been decent. We peaked into the top 10, and just people are talking about it. People want to know what's going on. People are starting to realize, like, again, this is not going away. It's still here. Oh, wait, these guys have been up to some smart stuff, and it's just going to be the place to be. So, yeah.
It's the place to be, cash.
Exactly.
Get you hit you with that one. Yeah, well,
Yes.
cool. Well, I have to finish sorting my travel schedule, but probably I'll find a way to make it. We'll see. Again, lots of moving parts, and I'm just finally just booked my Moneratopia travel for like 2 weeks from now. So, yeah, we'll make it. I'll try to make it there, and
I'm looking forward to seeing you. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I haven't. There's a bunch of other people. Thankfully, I have ran into Callisti quite a few times in person, and he's always a great hang. So, so at least I have that. But I've never met a lot of them, like Jonathan Silverblood, in person. And yeah, he's another legend of the game, as it were. But it's gonna be like, it's funny. I did this space yesterday on basically is Europe and GMI for crypto. Sort of playing off of like the regulation stuff, but so much fun stuff is happening, in Europe. I mean, we're holding the Dash conference in September, and right around with the Common Sense, their Cypherpunk Week thing. But also the Litecoin Summit is moving from the US to Amsterdam as well.
Really? Wow. Okay. Tell me about that. Do you know why is that happening?
I'm not 100% sure why they decided to move it, but maybe it was just to like not be in the US every year. But I know they were doing part of Dutch Blockchain Week in June, I think, in Amsterdam. And so that'll be interesting as well. Yeah, I mean, Europe might be the best place to get, shanked for your ledger in 2026. So,
yeah, Europe's got a bit of a scene. I'm glad to be part of it. Like, we've done Bliss in Slovenia the last couple of years. We considered relocating it this year, but it was always just going to be in Europe. In the end, we didn't. But again, it's still maybe on the card next year or the year after. It will depend. Like, obviously, it depends on how much sponsorship money you have, what size of event. It matters a lot. There's a lot of different factors. But yeah, Europe's the place to be, actually.
Yeah, I kind of feel like, as far as the conference theater is concerned, first of all, Europe is as close, or in some cases closer, than a lot of other conferences, because there just aren't a lot of East Coast US conferences other than like Miami and stuff. And like, if I want to go to Vegas, I can get to Amsterdam as faster than Vegas. And then like Mexico City, right, where I'm going not too far from now, is further. Like, I could get to like, Croatia instead. And like, so for me, I'd rather go to someplace cool and exotic out that way. I don't know how exotic, but something like, Europe is nice for tourism, right? And I also feel like I don't have experience with this, but the Asian conference circuit is something where a lot of wild stuff happens, and a lot of people are like, oh, are you going to based on the energy you get from people. Like, I kind of feel like the North American conference circuit is a little like mid, right? It's like Consensus, which is, Stablecoin Fest or whatever, Stablecon. And then like the Bitcoin conference, and it's like meh. And the other ones, some of them are good locally, but then the European ones tend to be my favorite, and I have not been to any Asian ones, and I don't like the Dubai ones, but it is what it is. All right, sounds good. Follow you at the BCH podcast on X.
It's not going to matter. I'm suppressed. So, but yeah, please do.
Yeah. What about, is there a way to follow you on BChat?
Yeah, there is. You just go on BChat, just go bchat.cash in your browser, and then you'll see firstly, you're going to need to you don't have to, but send yourself some BCH on the main wallet screen so you have some funds. Then go on the BChat tab, and then you'll find me in there. It's at the BCH podcast. I think the exact same thing, but we don't even have a search bar yet. That's how early to the game you are. Wow. We're going to be working on that. But you'll see on the main feed, I'm commenting in there as much as anyone. So you'll see my profile and you can follow me on there if you want. But write some comments, say hi, say how you're finding it. Let us know what needs improving because, yeah, it's still pretty early stage stuff. But back up your keys, only use a couple dollars, have fun with it. Yeah, bchat.cash.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Please give this thing a like on the way out and then maybe share it wherever you're at. And then we'll be good with that. And then I'll see you guys another time, like maybe next week. Peace out, guys. Bye-bye. Time to hit the outro.
Adam, we're here because we love you. And we're all tired of watching you get abused.
Abused? By who?
Hi, I'm Visa. I charge you 29% interest, 3% foreign fees, and make you wait 3 days to see if your payment went through.
But I thought you were my friend.
No, Dash is your friend. Instant, private, under a penny, and with Dash Spend, you walk into over 100,000 stores and pay like a boss.
All ready, yeah? Awesome, thank you very much. Feel alive, guys. This is awesome. Tastes like freedom. And I save 5% by using the app.
That's the Dash High, baby.
Let's go.
Download the mobile wallet, one tap, boom, financial sovereignty.